Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Social Work and Criminal Justice Academic Connect. I'm going to give us a few minutes to let some people join in here. If you're watching this after the fact, maybe skip a minute ahead, 45 seconds, while we do the awkward waiting period. If you are just joining us, welcome. So glad you are here. I see our number is increasing a bit, so thanks so much for stopping by. Yeah, we'll give it another minute or two. My name's Taylor Middleton. I am one of the admissions representatives here at Azusa Pacific University, and I'm happy to be hosting this. I love hosting these so much. I love them because I just love getting to hear from the faculty themselves. Please know, this is a luxury, okay? This is a luxury. Not every school is going to offer you this, but I love it because it gives you a little taste of like what the community at APU is like and the nearness you have to your faculty members if you do choose to go to school here. So, get a little taste early, and then you're like, wow, that cake batter ice cream, that's pretty addicting. I want some more cake batter ice cream. So then you go to more events of ours and you meet more faculty, and then you're like, you know what? I'm depositing. I want the whole cake batter ice cream tub. And you just get the whole thing. And then you're here for 4 years and you get to work alongside these awesome faculty members. Great. Well, I'll introduce myself one last time. My name is Taylor Middleton. I'm the admissions representative for Azusa Pacific University. Welcome to our Academic Connect with our social work department and our criminal justice department. I am going to have our faculty members introduce themselves in just a second. I want to point all of my guests to the Q&A box that's down at the bottom. That Q&A box is where you're going to direct all of your questions. Whether you have an admissions related question or a major related question, ask them in there and I will prompt those to our faculty members and they will answer those questions for you. So that's how that Q&A box is going to work. Make sure to utilize it. Yeah, that's sort of the shindig for tonight. So we're going to start with a presentation from criminal justice, then we'll move on to a presentation from social work, and then we're going to have a Q&A portion of the event where your questions are going to get answered using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Awesome. Well, I am going to have social work introduce themselves first, then Professor Rodriguez and Dr. Williams.
Great. Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Professor Amy Tawati. So I am the program director for our undergraduate social work program here at APU. And I'm really excited to be with you this afternoon, not only as a representation of social work and faculty, but also as a representative, as an alum of APU social work program. So I love getting to meet new students that hopefully develop into alumni alongside of me and colleagues in the field of social work. So I look forward to sharing with you more about social work in a bit.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Professor Rodriguez. I'm the director or program director in criminal justice for all the regional and online curriculum.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Candace Williams, and I'm the chair of the Criminal Justice Department here at APU. And so you'll learn a little bit more about me and the department in a few moments, but I just wanted to say hi and good evening to each and every one of you, and thank you for coming just to learn more about social work and criminal justice.
Awesome. Go ahead and take it away with your presentation, Dr. Williams.
Awesome. Here we go. And so let me scoot it over. All right, and so welcome everyone. And so I have a few minutes just to share some really important things with you as it relates to our department in criminal justice. And so just an introduction of who I am. My name is Dr. Williams. Once again, I'm originally from the Bay Area, so Vallejo, California, to all my NorCal people out in the room. My areas of interest are victimology, in which I evaluate domestic violence, interpersonal violence, human trafficking, and a variety of different sex crimes. And so that's currently what my research is about. I'm working with Orange County this year as it relates to evaluating human trafficking in those particular areas. And then how can we better assist the medical professionals in addressing such issues in Southern California? Here is just a quick snippet of some of our full-time faculty. So we have Dr. Tuthill, Dr. Messinas, Dr. Leo, and Professor Rodriguez, who you just met just a couple of moments ago. And so those are our full-time faculty here at APU. And we have a host, roughly about 15 adjuncts that also work with us in teaching our courses between the Azusa campus and all 3 of our regional campuses. Molly is our program coordinator. And so if you have any questions about the Criminal Justice Department, this is the person to come and see. She serves as our confidential assistant and administrator for our department. And so for many of you all, this is going to be the contact person and the first person that introduces you into the department and also to address all of your questions. And so at the end of the presentation, we do have our contact information. So if you're interested in contacting us further, we'll feel free to do that as well. All right, so what is criminal justice for some of you all that may not know? Well, it can be thought of as society's response to crime. And so when we see things kind of happening in our world that is against the law, how are we going to respond to those issues? And so it's really about figuring out how are we going to maintain order in our society and to understand the historical context of how that order has changed over time. And so the major players that we see involved in criminal justice are the police, the legal system, right? And then also correctional agencies. And so police officers are our first kind of direct contact. If an arrest is made and something has to go to court, this is where lawyers and judges become involved. If somebody is actually prosecuted and found guilty of their crime, then they're transitioned to the correctional agencies of jail, prison, and or rehabilitation services. And so we evaluate all of these different aspects within the criminal justice system when you're taking this as a major degree. In addition to that, the criminal justice system is also referred as a system. And so people want to know, what does that mean when we always think of things as referred as a system? Well, I want you to kind of think about it in this context when we see it as more of a series of steps, okay? And so kind of think about it a little bit further. One of the examples that I want to kind of have us think about tonight is that if we were driving on the freeway and if we decided to have a little bit of a heavier foot, right? What happens? We can get pulled over, we can get a ticket, right? And so it's really just kind of important that we understand what are the steps, and they need to be predictable. And so if I'm speeding going 80 miles on the freeway, then I can predict that if I'm pulled over, I'm going to get a ticket. If I get a ticket, I can predict that they're going to want me to show up in court and make an argument. If I'm found guilty or liable or responsible for this crime, then I can predict that I need to pay the fine that goes with that. And so we really do evaluate a lot of the collaborative effort within this criminal justice system. And so about our major in the department, and so we have been on the campus of APU for about 7 years now. And so we've seen a humongous rapid growth when it comes to both the student population and our faculty as well. And so when it comes to our research as faculty, we have a plethora of experience. And so a lot of our faculty are engaged in police communications, investigation. As I mentioned earlier, my area of specialization is in victimology. We also have a handful of faculty and students that are interested in social justice, advocacy work, policy changes, right? We have a number of students that want to go into law school that either want to become a prosecutor and a defense attorney. We have those that want to actually work inside jails and correction facilities, right? And so we want us to know that there are many different opportunities that students can actually engage in, and you're not going to be stuck just to one particular area. And so as it relates to our student demographics, we currently have about 120 current majors. We just graduated about 40 to 45 students in the spring. So a large class group when we're thinking about APU, because one of the perks and benefits about coming to APU is smaller class works, more one-on-one engagement with your faculty, et cetera. And so out of that 120, we do have 60 students that come from first generation, meaning that they are the first in their families to ever receive and go to college and receive a degree. So with that, that's huge for us because that allows us to understand what kind of resources need to be available, what kind of care needs to be established, right? The ways that we present discussions and the books that we have them read are really going to hone in on this diversity that we see within our student population. And so when it comes to the race and ethnicity, we have about 54% that identify as Latino or Latina, 24% who identify as Caucasian, 7% African American, and around 3% who identify as Asian American. And then when it comes to our gender, we have about 54% who identify as female and 46% who identify as male. And so it's important for you all to understand the demographics and to understand that this is a major that is very diverse when it comes to gender, race, experience, political ideology, religious background, etc. So it's a way that we can embrace difference, right? And figure out ways to work together. When it comes to some of the major requirements, the criminal justice major has about 51 units in order to graduate. And so coming in as a freshman, APU requires 120 units. And so that leaves some room for GE requirements. And then it also leaves rooms for students to minor in this program as well. And so I gave a list of minors that most of our students have engaged in. So psychology, pre-law, ethnic studies, leadership, sociology, biology, and chemistry. For those that are interested in bio and chemistry, they go into our forensic science kind of realm. For those that are interested in psychology, they go into the forensic psychology as well. So when we're trying to get into the mindsets of criminals, this is one good way that you can kind of blend those majors together. And so this major allows you to kind of figure out what are some of your interests and to really specialize in those areas as well. Here are some of our foundational courses that students will take from intro to CJ all the way to family violence. We have classes on terrorism, criminal law. We're big on research. And so writing is important as a criminal justice major, regardless if you want to become a police officer and or an advocate. What you write down is important and can really be the deterrence or the determination of whether somebody's found guilty or not for their crimes. And so we talk about ethics as well, right and wrong, and making decisions, making sure that we're making the right decisions based on all the evidence that is given to us. And we have 5 elective classes that students would also need to take as well. And so this is where you can kind of major in some of your special topics for that area. And so as a student, you will learn one of the most important things is to become a critical thinker. And so students are not just sponges where faculty members just regurgitate information, but instead really sitting with this and asking the so what question. And so if we know things are a problem within our society, as a criminal justice major, you're going to ask yourself, what can we do in our particular field that's going to properly address this question? And so in order to do that, it's important that we work as a team. So none of us work in silos. And so being able to talk to people, and particularly when people disagree with one another, that's the beautiful thing with a lot of criminal justice majors is that we learn from one another and then make the best decisions with what we have. And with that, it creates this culture of being a professional as well. So the ways in which you email your faculty members, into the way that you have discussion in class, into the way that you present yourself on social media, we really do cultivate this culture of being a professional. And so I'll run through a couple of these slides as I'm ending my presentation, because outside of just learning context in the classroom, we put on a variety of different events throughout the semester. And so the next couple of slides will briefly just talk about some of these emerging Opportunities. So a couple of years ago, there was kind of this big wave and discussion on Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. And so we wanted to hear from people from each of those camps. And so we brought people together from law enforcement. We brought community advocates together. We brought students together to really talk about these issues in which we call Days of Dialogue. And once again, this is an opportunity for us to really dive in to some of these pertinent issues that you will be facing in your actual careers. Another opportunity that we had is called the Innocence Project. And so Dr. Tuthill has taken students to Homeboy Industries, which is in downtown LA, to talk to people who have been incarcerated and to see the ways in which that we can rehabilitate their lives into being a productive citizen. And in addition to that, on the left, we have what we call the Innocence Project, where there have been individuals who have been wrongly accused for crimes, and then how are we as a society going to right those wrongs? In my American Courts class, I have taken students to downtown LA to go sit in a courthouse and to watch different trials. And so they'll watch criminal trials, they'll watch bail hearings, they'll really get to see the concepts that they're learning in a day-to-day basis in real life. And that's important for us to kind of highlight and to show you all, because it's not just about learning these concepts in the book, but also seeing how this applies in real life. And then last, we have internships and grant opportunities. And so one of your core classes will be to take an internship, either your junior and or your senior year, to really give you the exposure that you need in a career profession that you think is pertinent to your interests. In addition to that, Dr. Tuthill has just secured a $1 million grant 2 years ago for our department, where he works with the city of Duarte and includes students on this grant to get exposure to different career fields and then also to get paid along the way. And so these are just some examples that we really do highlight within our department, that it's not just about students coming into the classroom, but really getting that full-fledged experience in the outside world as well. And then we put on criminal justice workshops. And so these are just a list of some of our workshops that we will be putting on both fall and spring semesters. So first up, Professor Rodriguez, who is on the call with us today, is going to spearhead the graduate and law school admissions process. And so it's important for students to know what this process is entailing and what is going on, and then how to do that as well. We also want to make sure that we prepare our students for mock interviews, right? How to apply for different career jobs, how to have a digital imprint. And so evaluating our social media. And so really making sure that we're setting you all up for success when it comes to these workshops. And I'm only going to show one video that's about 40 seconds long, and then my presentation will be done. But I wanted you all to hear from an actual student, their perspective on the program.
Hi, my name is Ashley Lucas. I'm a criminal justice major, and in my future, I hope to work with juveniles and help change the system. It was actually during my civic engagement class when we were told to research what we thought the media's perception or how they perceive the system. And I remember hearing this quote that it's not necessarily that we have bad cops, but the system itself is bad. And that's when I started really researching the system and found Michelle Alexander, The New Jim Crow, and just realized that the people in the system aren't bad, as he said, but the system itself and what it was built for and what it stands for. And so that's why I chose this major, so that I can make a change in that system.
And so as you can see, a lot of our students, let's see if I can exit out of that. There we go. And so a lot of our students really do value their major within the process. And so hopefully these few minutes that I was able to share with you all really did highlight that fact. And so I'll leave our contact information in the chat if you have any further questions. But thank you once again for this time and allowing us to share a little bit about who we are and what we do for our students.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. If during her presentation you had some questions, please send them down in the Q&A box below. I know that was really enriching for me to just hear more about your program, and I'm excited to pass it off to the director of our social work department, Professor Tawati. I'm going to get that presentation all shared for you and we'll get started.
Great. Yes. So I am excited to share with you guys about social work. So I mentioned that I was an undergraduate alum of the program. And I remember hearing faculty and staff and even graduates of the program share just how wonderful their experience was and the caliber of the program that it was. And I remember thinking, well, of course, like your faculty in the program or your students that have graduated from the program, of course you would say that. So it wasn't until I got out into the field and interacted as an employee in the field of social work and interacted with other students from other programs that I realized, oh, no, there is something special about the social work program at APU, which led me back to the program as a faculty member. So I first wanted to share with you guys actually a little bit of a chart that shows what is occurring in terms of the labor force related to social work. So I assume that you are wanting to be a student because at the end of that experience, you are wanting to be a employed social worker, right? Or employed in whatever study area you're going to study. So the great news about social work is that we are a growing field. So you can see there on the bottom that total all occupations as tracked by the Bureau of Labor Statistics is growth looking to be about 4%. And social work well exceeds that. So we're excited about the opportunity to train really great social workers to fill sort of those employment needs that are in our communities. I also want to share that really the whole idea of social work is to prepare people to help others. And that sounds really broad. Later in my presentation, I'll share with you what you can do with that as a career. But I wanted to highlight that for me, I know selecting this field as a major and then as a career, I always knew I wanted to help people. I just didn't know what that would look like. And I think traditionally, most people kind of defer to teaching or to the medical field as a form of helping. And those are great fields, but they're not for everyone who wants to help. And I just stumbled upon social work and have just been really blessed by, my career in the field. So how I best explain social work actually is by looking at a diagram on the next slide. So I really loved psychology and sociology as areas of studies. I always loved those classes. Those were things that really excited me in terms of learning. I loved looking at psychology and thinking about what is human behavior? How is our thought process connected to that? And I always loved thinking about systems and society and what was going well and what wasn't. So looking at sociology as an area of study. But I always left those classes feeling like, okay, but what do I do about that? Or what can I do with that? And social work is kind of a merge of those two disciplines in terms of theoretical study and thinking about both people and how they operate and what's going on in kind of our society. And we call that person and environment. So we believe that you actually have to, aim at change and efforts that are like aimed and focused on the individual, and also think about what's happening at the society level. Both of those need to change in order for there to be lasting impact. The other two pieces that social work really draws in is thinking about social justice. So promoting the well-being of all people. We have a very strong commitment to that since the inception of our profession. And actually a little known fact is most people that think about, oh, I really want to be a clinician or I want to be a therapist. Actually, most therapy done in the US is done from social workers. So LCSWs that are licensed clinical social workers. So we also have a strong socio-emotional presence in terms of the way that we want to work with people. So when people are like, define social work, how would you define it? I kind of talk about it's all kind of four of those elements combined into a profession. So hopefully that gives you a little picture. And what I wanted to introduce to you next is actually our team of faculty. So we actually have 5 full-time faculty members who have specialty in a lot of different areas, but some highlights would be nonprofit management, management and leadership, looking at things like performance coaching, so combined degrees of MBAs and social work degrees, a lot of our specialty in mental health, social justice actions, and poverty and inequality, and essentially addressing that at a macro level. So this team of 5 is just an incredible group of people that I'm lucky to call colleagues, and are very invested in building colleagues. So we tell students all the time, as you come into our program, really what we're hoping for is that we can help develop you as a professional who will then serve as colleagues next to us as we help work with clients and with communities. And supported within this team is also a grouping of adjuncts who are great faculty who have specialization in particular areas. So one of those faculty members, as an example, is a specialist in DV and interpersonal violence, and she actually hosts a class where you can earn a DV certificate to basically work in any shelter DV program in the state of California. It's a very specialized certificate that can only be offered by a few people and agencies in the state of California. So we're really lucky to have her as an adjunct faculty. So we bring in adjunct expertise to give you guys opportunity to specialize in certain areas. And so that'll bring me to actually what our curriculum looks like. So I like to talk about it as a pyramid because it does kind of build on itself. So kind of that foundational knowledge is going to be your introductory classes. So those will be teaching you, okay, I know a little bit about social work, or I have a little bit of interest. We have an intro to social work class. So when you join us at APU, we would love for you to take an intro to social work class, maybe to further explore if this is the right major for you. That major will tell you about how do I develop as a social worker? What would I do as a career as a social worker? So those are going to be your theoretical kind of beginning level courses. And then you'll get into specialized courses. So examples of that would be child welfare. So I know traditionally a lot of people think social work and they think child welfare, and absolutely social workers work in child welfare, but that is definitely not the only space that we occupy. And I'll get to that in a future slide. But you can take a specialized course in child welfare if that is an area you want to practice in. You can take a number of electives, or you can also select to have a minor. So a lot of our students study maybe a secondary language or maybe psychology or sociology to kind of further develop in those particular areas. And then built on that are going to be your practice courses. So we are a practice degree, meaning that you're going to be specialized to actually practice in social work. So I sort of equate it to, say, like nursing, right? Where you're going to learn actually specialized skills that you're going to go out into the field and practice. And so in these sequence of courses, you'll learn things like, how do I assess an individual? How do I write a treatment plan? That builds on how would I facilitate a group, like a support group, or maybe a socio-emotional group at a school. And then that builds on, what if I want to be a larger scale community practitioner and I want to write policy that impacts people, or I want to serve as a legislator. So you're going to kind of learn all of those different elements from a very practice perspective. So all of our courses at that level employ some sort of either simulation experience or applied practice. So for instance, in our individuals class, actually you'll learn all those assessment, intervention, and application type practice skills. And then the culmination of that class is we hire actors and actresses to come into class and portray a client scenario, and you get to practice. And so the idea is that we want to build your level of proficiency to a place where you feel confident to go into a senior year internship. And that internship is very specialized. So you actually apply to the internship through our program, you'll interview for it. We have a host of agencies that'll actually show you in a future slide that we place you with. And so you'll spend 400 hours, so a fall and spring semester, in that internship, kind of specializing and getting to practice, so that when you graduate, you feel like you're a prepared social worker to go out into the field. For a lot of our students, that becomes their first job. They're offered, a job opportunity as at the end of their internship. So that's always a great plus. So a couple quick highlights of our program is that we are an accredited program. So we get asked that by students that are looking at social work programs. And so we do have national accreditation. We've been accredited actually since 1982. So we're coming up on our 40-year anniversary of that. Through that accreditation, we also have affiliation with National Honor Society called Phi Alpha that is specialized to social work. So as a social work student, you would get the opportunity to earn a Phi Alpha induction membership into this honor society. As I've mentioned previously, we have a lot of service learning that's embedded in our program, and it's very intentional service learning. So another example, when you have your groups class, we actually work with a local middle school to help host groups on their campus. So our students actually facilitate the groups, they create the group curriculum, they facilitate independently the group experience. So all through your social work courses, completing the service learning would also complete the required service credits for the university. So a lot of students like the fact that you don't have to do anything additional compared to what you're doing as part of your study. I've already mentioned the field internship. And then something else that's special is that we have professionalized mentorship. So all of our students will be connected with a faculty member as a specific advisor. So that's in addition to, opportunities to connect in office hours. We also have our students arranged in what we call student cohorts. So you'll graduate with a graduating class that you've been familiar with and gone through your practice classes with and your internship classes with. So you have sort of built-in colleagues and built-in support after you graduate from APU. Last couple perks, and then I'll share with you kind of career opportunities and close out. So as I've mentioned, one of our values is that we are a professional program. And so what's great is that you'll have the opportunity to enter into job opportunities, kind of highlighted as part of the next slide. That will ask for a degreed social worker. So they'll want someone with a Bsw degree to enter into that job opportunity. So a lot of our students ask, well, what's the difference if I have this degree or that degree? A lot of employers are looking for somebody that's Bsw specific for the job opportunities that social work would hold. The other great thing, other great value that I like to highlight, if we can go to the next slide, Taylor, is that you have the opportunity to have an MSW advanced standing degree. So what that means, a lot of different areas of study call these a 4+1 degree. But the great thing about getting a Bsw degree from an accredited program is you have the opportunity to enter into an advanced standing program, which means that you could enter into the degree program at the end of your Bsw completion. And in 1 year's time, you would have your graduate degree completed. So a lot of our students like that. We offer that here at APU. It's also offered at a lot of other national universities nationally. But some of our students start their careers with us either as a freshman or a transfer student, and in 1 year time after their Bsw degree have completed their graduate degree and are done with their formal education. So a lot of our students consider that a great perk. The next slide is actually intended to look, wow, like what is all this information? So for me to pull out some of the highlights of this, what is it essentially showing is that what can you do with a social work degree? So I mentioned earlier that a lot of people think synonymous with social work is child welfare. And while that is an area where we also practice in spaces like healthcare, mental health care, family and child welfare, aging, veterans and military is actually a really big growing field. Criminal justice, workplace, working as HR representatives, working in substance use and addiction, working as environmentalist or city employees. So there's a lot of opportunities that far exceed what I could share in this short time together. And what that second slide is showing is that we actually have students placed in all of those areas as part of their internship. So we have internships with different counties, with different legislators. So Assemblymember Rubio, for an example, we have a lot of school districts that we host students at. So really, if you have an area of interest and you don't see something listed as you enter the program, we would love to work with students also on developing internship sites. My last slide is actually just a couple quick highlights about Bsw Opportunities in addition to what I've already mentioned. So we have a student club, an organization that really has helped a lot of students build on their leadership skills. We have a very specialized research approach. So actually our research is connected to our internships. So students in their internships develop a research question and get to work alongside a faculty member to develop that question all the way through to a research project. A unique aspect is that there's a specialized section of that course where you can then work with a faculty member to submit to basically present your research at a national conference. We've had great success with getting students accepted into presenting their research and also placing as awardees. So last year we placed first and third at our national conference. We always get people that are like, Azusa, where is Azusa? So it's really exciting to be a national representative at those conferences. And then the last piece of that advanced section class is that you can publish your research. And so you work alongside a faculty member and can leave as an undergrad with a published article of your research. So we also had a lot of great success with that. I've mentioned the Phi Alpha Honor Society, and another quick highlight that's great, obviously, for students to hear about is that we have some BSW specific scholarships. So we have some alum who have offered to support students entering our program with awards in their senior and junior years. So we can share more about that if that's of interest to you. And then my last slide is just our contact information. So we would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you directly as a faculty member and program director. I love answering questions, nothing too big or too small to send my way. Or we also have a generalized email. So you can send it to BSW, so Bachelor of Social Work at apu.edu. We would love to respond to any questions you might have about social work as a profession or the major of social work here at APU.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was so insightful. I love that you just used a lot of different graphs and things like that to convey all the information. I really appreciated that. Awesome. Well, we will have Professor Rodriguez join us on screen right now. Please continue to send information into the Q&A box for our panelists to answer. And Professor Tawati, you can join in as well. I'm just going to direct some questions towards the both of you. So as I mentioned, excuse me, once again, use that Q&A box down below. Make sure to get those questions asked. But I think what would be a great first question for both of you to answer, and maybe we can start with you, Professor Rodriguez, since you haven't had a chance to speak super much during this time. Both of your professions deal with the in-between, the uncomfortable between everything, the diversity that exists in the world and the lack of harmony that is found there while your profession is trying to harmonize that. And so I would love if you could give a topical example of ways that you see students that enter into your classroom conversing about whether it be current event things or things that may be current in their life. How would you say that your department feeds into that and helps students gain an understanding for the diversity that exists within the world that they'll be serving in?
Perfect. Thank you very much. I love it. I think the key words that we should be talking about is 1, justice, 2 is diversity, and 3 is current event. Because if you think about that, those 3 key words are actually, it could go back to the foundation of our Constitution in 1776. So when it comes to diversity is concerned, we have a diverse student population, but also even in our country is known as a melting pot as far as diversity is concerned. And usually when it comes to this diversity, there's always this interaction and collaboration. And that's what this department is about interacting and collaborating. And I always tell individuals, the ones who are really successful who enjoy the criminal justice major are individuals who have basically 2 components. One component is justice. Something about justice is what compels them. And then also an advocacy where integrity is part of that advocacy. So when that correlates together, then we have individuals that are professors that guide you into that aspect, whether sometimes individuals want to become a sworn officer, or someone we want to get into probation, or someone wants to eventually become an advocate or social advocate where they eventually go on to law school. Those avenues are all part of the process. And I always tell students that criminal justice students are sort of like artists. Sometimes artists don't know if they're going to be into canvas or sculpting, but there's something artistic about them. The same applies likewise with criminal justice majors. If you're a person that in your heart of hearts, there's something about justice that you seek, or something about having integrity, those are the kind of qualities that individuals that are successful in criminal justice. For example, I always tell individuals, imagine a fish. You tell a fish to climb a mountain, they're going to be out of their element, but you put a fish into an ocean, all of a sudden they're going to be thriving. The same thing when it comes to criminal justice majors. Criminal justice majors, for whatever reasons, it's like that fish where if you put that fish in a ocean, they're going to be thriving. There's always about something about justice. There's something about, and then with the current events that we're facing now, with what Dr. Williams indicated, who's the department chair, with the Blue Lives Matter, with the Black Lives Matter, with the All Lives Matter. This is a university setting. Individuals are allowed to think in various ways, and individuals are allowed to and exposed to different viewpoints. So that is cultivated because the seed is already there. So what the department does is cultivate the seed. So then later on, when they graduate in an efficient manner, they're going to be able to grow that tree and blossom and bear fruit. So that's basically what the department is about, is cultivating that seed, so that it can grow strong as far as students are concerned.
I love that. Justice, current events. I love it. Awesome. Throwing it over to you over in social work. What would you say is how you see that attempt to harmonize the world from within your department?
Yeah, I think for us, it's definitely that person and environment approach that we really want to study. How do we serve and address challenges at the individual level, and how do we do that at a societal level? Because we truly feel that addressing one or the other really limits actually what change can occur. I think the other part of social work that's kind of specialized is that we really spend time thinking about you as the practitioner being the tool of change. And what I mean by that is that we want you also to be discovering yourself, right? Your own biases, your own, issues that are basically contributing to some of the problems and alleviating some of the problems, right? So I think a big part of our work is working alongside students to kind of self-discover, to become more self-aware, to address some of the things that may be beneficial for them to address in order to be good practitioners in the field. So we truly think it starts with us, and then it kind of moves outwardly, and moving outwardly looks at addressing both the individual and the environment in terms of the way that the community and the individual are presenting the problem. So we believe in a lot of client-centered work, meaning that people are going to lead the change process. I'm sure for all of us, we can identify with the fact that if someone comes to us and says, change this about you, it's less effective than us recognizing this needs to change about myself. And so really giving students very tangible skills on how to address change for themselves, but also how to address the change, outwardly to individuals and communities they'll work with.
Thank you so much. What great answers from both of you. Well, it seems like we have a question in the Q&A from one of our students who is a senior in high school, meaning they're applying this year. They're interested potentially in both of your areas because they're interested in law and in social work. So they're curious, how would you speak into your program to be a good degree if they're wanting to look into family law as an attorney? Another idea for them was a CPS fatality investigator. So how would you speak to, in maybe just in 1 minute answer, how do you speak to the benefit of your program for that student's postgraduate success? We can start with you, Professor Rodriguez.
Okay, welcome to the club. As far as law school is concerned, you said you want to become an attorney or investigator. Welcome to the club. The criminal justice profession is by the time when you graduate with that degree here at APU, if you choose a criminal justice major, you have met numerous individuals that have gone to law school, and you have met numerous individuals that are investigators. And guess what? You're currently meeting one. I actually graduated law school over 20 years ago. So I took the LSATs in 1998, and then got accepted to the University of Illinois at Chicago School of Law, and graduated law school over 2 decades ago. And my background is in criminal law as well as constitutional law. So if you want to get into family law, I'm actually also the coordinator for individuals who want to get into law school. We recently had an APU alumnus not only get accepted into to an ABA law school, but got a full tuition right scholarship. So we actually have an LSAT group where students are studying for the LSAT. So we have numerous students currently right now in law school. So then if that's one of the steps that you want to get into, I will definitely help you out. We're one-on-one as far as students and faculty is concerned. And when it comes to investigative work, again, the same thing applies. You're going to be before you graduate and when you graduate, you're going to come across numerous individuals with investigative backgrounds where they will show you the way as far as how to get into the process. Like I said in the beginning, this profession is about having a sense of justice, and it seems like you have that with family law, and investigative work is about integrity. So moving forward, in either way, you're going to have to go through a background check. So from the very beginning, I don't like to say strict, but a lot of individuals in the profession is all about having high quality integrity. So you'll meet a lot of individuals in this major with that, and will assist you as far as if you want to get into investigative work or law school.
Thank you so much, Professor Rodriguez. How would you differ from that or supplement that over in the social work department?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a great question. So in the social work program, what that would look like is that, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, one of the required classes for every social worker is a child welfare class. And in that class, you're going to be learning programs and policies, ways that the CPS system impacts the well-being of children and families. And many students then who through that class or through other experiences have interest in being a CPS worker will essentially then usually suggest that they want to have a CPS internship. So we contract with LA County Department of DCFS to host interns. And so oftentimes then you'd intern there to get some practical experience over the course of your senior year. And then what a student would do is typically apply to a dual degree program. So a lot of MSW programs, so graduate social work programs, have a dual degree where you can also receive a JD. And sometimes students will explore that further in our program by taking our social work and law elective. So we offer an elective that's hosted by a degreed social worker and a degreed law, has a JD degree. And a lot of students then look at, okay, which do I lean to? Do I want to look for a dual degree? Because obviously there's more time and commitment to focusing on a dual degree. So lots of opportunity to, very specifically explore that interest and build skill around, becoming a CPS investigator.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love that you guys are paired together, because I think it's really, at least for me, bringing to light some of the uniqueness between both of your fields, but also some of that content overlap and ways that you guys are able to marry that and separate that. Awesome. Okay, so I've got another question coming your way. And my question is going to be for specifically for the social work department. So you had mentioned some of the social work scholarships, and I believe you had said it's junior and senior year, but when students hear the word scholarship, they're ready to pounce. So maybe you could just speak super fast into when students are able to apply to that, and that they don't need to worry about that right this second.
Yeah, sure. So social work, because we're an accredited program, we work a little bit different than some other majors. You can come into the university as a social work interest, and that gets you connected to our program, gets connected to the start of the curriculum. As I suggested, if you're even just a little bit interested, I think taking the intro to social work class that also fulfills a GE requirement is a great place to explore interest in our area. And so what happens is you come in as a social work interest, and then you'll apply to our program. And usually students will do that coming into their junior year. And that's when those scholarships become available to students. So we have 3 currently that are available to students. One of the scholarships looks specifically at granting award monies to students who are interested in working with individuals with disabilities. That could be a physical disability, maybe a mental health diagnosis, maybe some other disability that the student wants to focus on. So a lot of our students that go into that scholarship awardee actually specialize in an internship in one of those areas. So that's available to students. And then we have 2 other very special awards that come from alumni, as I mentioned. So these are alumni who really valued their education at APU and the social work program, went on to do amazing things and said, hey, I want to contribute to, a future alum of the program. And both of those opportunities are specialized to either being an immigrant or from an immigrant family, and or being somebody that's overcome a lot of obstacles and to reach their education in higher ed. And so that those degrees or those awards are essentially sent out to students as you become eligible, and applications are opened each year.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. I didn't even know those existed. I'm really glad I was listening in on that tonight. Awesome. Okay. Another question coming your way. Looking at the time, I'm hoping to get into, so we'll try to truncate our answers as much as possible, but I would love for you to quickly, I know Dr. Williams tapped on it a little bit, but if we could start with you, Professor Rodriguez, to just talk quickly about, are students able to balance a double major? Do you find mostly that students are doing a major and a minor? And what are thoughts for that? For maybe a student who wants to do political science and criminal justice, can they do a double major in those? Just maybe to speak into that for a moment.
Oh, definitely. It just depends on a student as far as how motivated they are. And I always tell students, what? We are actually blessed to be in a position to be at a university, to have the options to either major or double major. It comes down to, if you want a double major, then you just have to be efficient. The key word is efficient with your time. And the other word is sacrifice. In order to go achieve goals, you're going to have some sacrifice. So yes, double majoring is possible, but you have to be efficient with that, with scheduling, and also you have to be efficient with time. And then you have to sacrifice certain time if you want a double major. And then you have to, and when it comes to majoring and minoring, that's definitely feasible as well. So it just depends on how you're willing to schedule your time, what are you willing to sacrifice. And ultimately you have to ask yourself, okay, envision yourself, push the button, in 4 years from now, where do you see yourself? What do you want to do with this degree? Do you want to eventually go on to law school? Do you want to eventually do investigative work? And also when it comes to, I can see individuals why they have interest in political science, because maybe they want to get into public service. Individuals, if that's the case, you can do that as well. But also going to law school as well will give you an opportunity as far as public service is concerned. Majoring in criminal justice will give you an opportunity as far as public service is concerned. So to answer your question, the answer is very simply yes, if you're willing to have that commitment, dedication, and sacrifice.
So true. I really appreciate that. And I don't know if anybody else on the call heard push the button and predict 4 years from now, and maybe your heart started beating a little bit fast. All I'm going to say is this: take a breath. It's okay. If your freshman year, after your freshman year, you're like, okay, now I'm ready to add a second major, or I want to add 2 minors and this is what I want to add, or actually I want to switch from criminal justice to psychology. It's okay. You can totally make those changes, and you can adapt with that. So as much as it is important to be thinking about the future and where that's going to come from, it is also important to stay grounded in where you are, where your interests are currently. So I love that you're definitely hitting on where students should be thinking, but also remembering that you can add that second major or minors on at another time. But I'm so glad to hear that they can double major in criminal justice. And for social work, maybe you could talk on whether or not it is possible for students to do a double major or a major and a minor from within your department.
Sure. Yeah, what you just shared, Taylor, I think is so important. I changed my major 3 times as an undergrad and found social work on that 3rd try. So I really love that encouragement, because I think it's important as a student coming into the university to think, okay, how can I maybe use my GEs in a strategic way where I can explore maybe where I'm thinking about going. That would be definitely an encouragement I would make too. So yes, you can double major. We are a bit more unit heavy than some other majors just because we are a professional program. We do have kind of additional expectations on things like a formal internship and practice, actually clinical type classes. However, that doesn't mean that you can't double major. We do have students that do that. If you're interested in the honors program here at APU, we have quite a few students who are in our honors program here at APU and then double major, obviously, in social work. Other double majors or other majors that work well with social work are languages, biblical studies, sociology or psychology, because we have a lot of requirements that are connected to those classes or those areas of studies. So it's definitely possible to minor or double major in some of those areas. So yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And for students that are on the call listening, think, how do I be strategic about using my general education classes? Don't worry. We got people to help you. You're going to have an academic success coach. They're going to set you up for success, hence their title. So don't be worrying. We've got you. We will take care of you here. That being said, taking care of our students, you both are on our faculty here at APU, and you're here for a reason. I like to tell my potential students to APU that faculty members don't come here so that they can have X, Y, and Z things. Their priority is working with students. Given our low 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio and the fact that none of our classes are taught by graduate assistants or TAs means that these faculty members are going to be your professors that you're going to see on a weekly basis. So I would love just one warm thing that you appreciate about getting to work in your department that you would want to share with students that have an interest in that department. So we can start with you, criminal justice, and then we'll pop over to social work and we'll finish out for the evening.
Oh, the warm thing, the warm essence that I get working at APU is just, I'm truly blessed. I always say this every day. I'm blessed in the sense that not only working in a department, but working in something that I enjoy. And not only did I enjoy the criminal justice profession as well as social work as well, it's a people-oriented profession. There's something about justice, same thing with social work and criminal justice, something about justice, something about social that these individuals want to get involved in. And I'm blessed that actually have a career in this. And then there's a mentorship along the way. I always tell individuals in this profession, no one does it alone. There was always someone who had a mentor along the way. And I get to provide pass it forward to students. And then later on, I always tell students, when the time comes, when you get into law school, when you become an attorney, or when you become a sworn officer, I want you to come back and give back to the students. And we've actually had that, individuals who are currently in law school has shared the challenges as far as studying for the LSATs, but eventually getting a full tuition right scholarship. And then we've had students who there's nothing wrong with this, but was delivering pizza before they got their degree. And then eventually now, as soon as they graduated, became a sworn officer. And in this profession, he became a sworn officer, and with overtime makes over 6 figures. So not only is this profession rewarding as far as the subject matter that you get to enjoy, but it also provides a certain financial stability as well. So we're really spoiled in a sense where every day it seems like it's a blessing.
Thank you so much, Professor Rodriguez. What about you, Professor Tawati?
Yeah, that's so good. I would say that, at APU, something that feels very special, I think, is that we really value community. So I think that, yes, you aren't just a number in a seat. We want to get to know you, but we also want to help build community. And I love that that's one of APU's kind of hallmarks and something that we really lean into here at APU. And I've loved, similar to Professor Rodriguez, loved that I get to know our students. We really, truly value that. I love writing recommendation letters that I literally can think to that student very specifically and say, this is what this student is really good at and why they will make a great employee, or this is what they're really good at and why they would be a great grad student. And I can do that because of the class size, because of the community that APU fosters. It's a very special place in that way. And I would say the highlight of all of that, or kind of the pinnacle of that, is getting to see my students being field educators in the field. So they're now our internship supervisors. They're the ones that are showing up, on newscasts, being interviewed for the great work they're doing. They just really, to echo what Professor Rodriguez was saying, I think getting to see our students actually live out their calling and what they've been preparing for as students here at APU is just really icing on the cake for us as faculty members. So we would love to be a part of that journey for each of you.
I love that so much. What I'm just hearing from both of you is that number one, our students need to be prepared to live out their calling, and being a part of these departments, working with these faculty members, it's going to prepare them well. But they are also going to have a faculty and a staff standing behind them, cheering them on into their successes at APU and beyond. And that is not something you're going to find at every school. Just know that if you're listening in and that's something you want, pursue that, whether it is at APU or another space. God's going to lead you into that, but pursue the type of community that you are truly looking for at college. And if that's in our Department of Social Work or a Department of Criminal Justice, we're so excited to see your application and potentially see you in these programs. That being said, I'm going to have Professor Rodriguez and Professor Tawati drop in the chat your information one more time for students. And that information, for those of you watching on YouTube, that will be available to you. You can just reach out to your admissions counselor and they will get you that information. Additionally, we just dropped in our APU application link. So if you're watching this later and you're wanting to apply to APU, you're going to go to apu.edu/apply. Very simple. It's a free application. I would encourage you to reach out to either of these faculty members. If you were watching this, let them know you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it as much as I did, I'm sure you all did. And if you're wanting to visit campus, you can go to apu.edu/visit, come meet with the faculty members, sit in the class, or meet us and go for a tour. Thank you so much for coming and presenting, both Professor Rodriguez and Professor Tawati. I'm so grateful for the time that you spend to be here and to help benefit these students. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. And for those of you at home, have a great rest of your night. Bye, everyone.